Summit Lounge in Worcester at 116 Water Street is Massachusetts' only private cannabis consumption social club. Hi, I'm Jimmy Young, Pro Cannabis Media founder. On March 1st, that's a Wednesday night, 7 to 9 p.m., we're going to be live streaming a program right from here, a talk show with all sorts of little media celebrities, sports celebrities. We've got an infused sampling of some food that we might be able to share here, as well as some other surprises. Cannabis trivia, Cannabis Jeopardy, and the best freaking milkshakes of all time. Check this out. Now at the Summit Lounge, a fireside, that's what they call it. It's a chocolate ice cream blended with milk and s'mores, Torani syrup, fluff rim. You had me at fluff. It's all coated in s'mores cereal, topped with freshly toasted marshmallows, a graham cracker, and a Hershey's milk chocolate bar. They'll be here. I'll be here. Will you be here? Take a picture of the QR code and get your tickets now. Check the clock. It's a 4 o'clock start to Green Rush Live on a Friday afternoon. Hi, everybody. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media. We've been here at this time slot for almost 3 years. That's right. This is probably the longest continuing live show that we've produced at Pro Cannabis Media. We're very proud to talk about the business of cannabis on this program. I have a very interesting show ahead of us, but first I want to bring in my guest host, Rick Thompson, who of course is a correspondent on our Weed Talk News show and the executive director of NORML for Michigan. Hello, Rick.
Hello, Jimmy. I'm always happy to be on this show. It's a great time on Friday.
And we are welcoming in a great guest, again, courtesy of our friends at the Morrison Agency out of California. He is only about 3,000 miles away from me with a pit stop at what, 1,500 to you, Rick, or 1,800 from Michigan to California?
I hate to think about it. It's a long way.
We'll call it.
You know one thing, you and I had to scrape ice this week, and I actually found out George Sadler is with us. His company is called Gelato. And George, you actually admitted that in Southern California, you can't find an ice scraper, can you?
You know what? I didn't have time to go look for one, but I highly doubt that you're going to find one, at least down here. And you were talking about not wanting to put your swear words out there. So I left mine as well, but I wanted to make sure that you understood that I felt your pain, believe it or not. In Southern California, a few days ago, I had to scrape ice, and I used one of my kids' toys to do it.
There is nobody that's going to be sympathetic to your cause from the Northeast. I just want to say, okay.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I'm going snowboarding next week.
There you go. You know what? As long as you are making the most of it, we all know about that Southern California scene. But first of all, tell us a little bit about your company, Gelato. And the best thing that I was impressed when I read about your bio is this is a family-run business, correct?
Yeah. And so anybody that does know, we used to own a company called Platinum Vape, and we sold that 2 years ago, roughly. And so we started Gelato, and we are a family-based. My son is my business partner for the last 14 years. And then my other son, Nathan, which is now a business partner with one of our stores, is also functioning within this company as well. And my daughter Maddie is as well heading up the part of the sales part of what we're doing.
Well, that's awesome, and I know the challenges of the family business because I'm a descendant of one,
Okay.
and turned it down when Dad called me in 1988 and offered it to me, and I said, "Look, I'm a sportscaster. I'm not going to be an office furniture salesperson." And I look back at that conversation almost on a daily basis now, because we all know it's a challenge to run a business and build that business, right?
Yeah, it's funny because I've always kind of done my own thing, and my father, which owned an electrical company for almost 40 years, he was kind of on the step side of that. And just fast forwarding, I was living in Michigan with my family. I got divorced and kind of took some time and came out here. My dad said, "Hey, at that point in time, I owned some drive-through coffees and a restaurant in Michigan." And my dad said, "Hey, why don't you come out here and just kind of spend some time here?" And he kind of swindled me into the business side of which I'd kind of off and on been a part of a little bit growing up with him. And And then all of a sudden I found myself as the vice president of the company, which I have no idea how I ended up in that situation. And my dad's over in France and he's doing his thing. And I was the most miserable I've ever been. Even outside of the divorce, I was so miserable. And then I realized that he really wasn't wanting to be a part of it. And so when he came back into town, off and on, I'd kind of express it to him. Then finally I'd said, you have no interest. Let's just sell this thing because it's not for me. And somewhere secretly, I think just like every father, he thought, oh, maybe my kid will take this over and run this, down to Legacy Town or something. And I had no intentions at all. And so, we sold it. And that's kind of how that whole thing had sparked back in the day with Platinum Vape. Was my son, Cody, which was in college at the time, was in a business class, and somebody had done a business model on growing cannabis. And he came into my office, and we probably had about a month left before we were fully sold out of that business after 40 years. And he said, "Hey, you ever thought about growing cannabis?" And I said, "No, it's never been anything, business wise." And he persisted. And so anyways, we took after we closed that up, I kind of sat back for a bit, and he was, continued to look at it, and we ended up both getting our caregiver's license and that stuff that was going on, and started the first company. And six plants in a garage. Had no idea what to do, how to grow anything. Miraculously it turned out, and it kind of bloomed from there. And no pun intended, but we went from there to deliveries to stores, and we turned 6 plants into about $140 million a year business between California, Arizona, and Oklahoma, and Michigan, of course, which was our biggest market.
And it says you're in 400 dispensaries between California and Michigan. And Rick obviously is from Michigan. And Rick, I know that the market in Michigan always seems to be in a state of flux. I'm sure you have a few questions you'd like to ask George. Go ahead.
Well, George, first of all, I've already met your rep here in Michigan. I have her card here, Skylar Peggy. She's fantastic.
Great.
Yep. So we've been into some different industry events together. But Michigan is still a $2.3 billion industry. And although it's maybe challenging for some of the people, I mean, really, it's when you can differentiate yourself from everybody else, you do still stand a chance to gain valuable shelf space and really command some market share. One of the things I was curious about, Gelato is the name of a strain. I mean, clearly Gelato has fostered a lot of different strains throughout the cannabis verse. How do you balance the whole identity issue between trying to establish that Gelato as a company name versus someone else who might be selling a strain that has the name Gelato in it and it not have anything to do with you?
Well, I mean, it is kind of funny that we ended up with that name, and my son, I'd like to take credit for it, but he's the one that came up with Gelato. And I don't think it was truly based off the strain. I have to pick his brain on how that came to be. There's a big story beyond that. But how crazy is it that we were able to trademark, obviously not federally, but we were able to trademark Gelato, and then extensively trademark past that with logos and everything else, which we never thought that it wasn't already taken. And so the biggest confusion that we have, which we've kind of ridden with, is Gelato, the ice cream gelato. That seems to be where there's a lot of confusion on what we are, or especially in the beginning, people thought we were like a medicated ice cream. And obviously we've walked past that. But as far as the strain goes, that's always been a mainstream strain. And so we ended up with the name, and we've carried it through there. And so our motif is that look. I mean, we do have like some decorations of ice cream carts and that type of thing. But no, I mean, we've been really fortunate to be able to trademark Gelato, which I never.
The marketing's fun on that. There's a lot of ways you can brand identify, working off that whole confection and cannabis connection there.
Yeah.
Now, you're in Southern California, and Rick and I do a regular news show every week. And we know what's going on in California with the different rule changes and what have you. You've got a company that manufactures your concentrates, your edibles, your pre-rolls, your flour. It's all there. And you're doing, supposedly, according to your release anyway, you're one of the fastest growing cannabis companies in California. What's your secret, George?
My secret? Why would I give that out on this show?
Because that's why we ask those kind of questions. By the way, you can BS as much as you want. We're going to believe anything you say.
That's all I can do, I guess, is BS, because I just did a podcast last week, and it was kind of the same question. I said, I don't really know. I'll be honest with you. I think we have retained relationships, and the way that we are able to maneuver through all this, we really have gotten to the point of understanding the store's needs. That's the most important to us, is how do we work together with the store to make the store profitable? We can only do so much, obviously, but we really pair up with these stores. And I think we're in, I don't know, it's 430 or 440 stores in California alone. And our, I don't know how you say it, but per store is about 130% higher than any other companies that are on a shelf in a store. And so to us, that our relationship driven company, and the salespeople and everybody that's a part of this team has done a really good job of making sure that we pay attention to what's happening at the store level, and not just with the buyers, but more so with the bud tenders and the people that are really touching our product, and that translates into the customers. So I'd love to be able to sit back and say, this is what we're doing, but I can't tell you. I really don't know.
Well, and it says I shouldn't be asking you that anyway, because you have no secret code. But it seems to me, if you're working with your family, you've already had some relationships in place. Now you're in the atmosphere, I'm going to guess, in your company is a very positive, family-oriented kind of relationships, right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Does that lend itself to some conflict sometimes?
I'll be honest with you. The conflict that if you're talking about the old conflict between the family members, my son and I have not had an argument, and I mean an argument or a disagreement, business or personal, in probably, if I were to take a guess, 7-8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And my other son, Nathan, which he's part owner in our Gelato store up in Lake Elsinore. I don't know that we have ever had a disagreement. I mean, we have disagreements, but I mean, there's just no arguments. We've really grown to appreciate each other. And that started way back in the day. No, don't get me wrong. My son, Cody, and I, when we first started, we had a lot of disagreements. And what we did was we really found to stay in each other's lane and stay out of each other's lane and stay in our own lanes. And we were able to work that way early on to understand, what each one of us was going to do. And I said, listen, I've been running business my whole life, and I don't want to deal with the money anymore. I don't want to deal with that side of it. So you take that, I'll take the infrastructure, I'll take, and we combine each other on the marketing and the ideas and the concepts. And he's amazing when it comes to the marketing side of this, and the branding that we're doing is, we have now, I think, 170 SKUs. He's just done an amazing job with that. And it's kind of nice too, because to see my other son and daughter starting to become a part of that is pretty cool. And we are getting ready to launch, believe it or not, I mean, non-cannabis related, but we are launching a tequila. And so we are, as a family, plus, I mean, everybody here is a family. We're all flying down to Jalisco and doing the whole agave thing. And it's really kind of cool to see my other son and daughter, being a part of something like this for us, that's new, and we're all doing this together. So super excited about that.
I love it. Hey, Rick, you know how everybody in this industry has an edible story. You also, looking back, have a tequila story. I don't know about you, but I know I do.
Everybody that reached my age certainly does. I know.
It's funny because one of my security guards downstairs says, "Hey, he's from Mexico, and he caught me on the way in. He said, 'Hey, your son Nathan. I told him that I'd get him a bottle, and but he hasn't been in today. He's up at the store.' I said, 'Okay, I'll take it.' So he runs down. He grabs me this bottle, and he's got it in a brown bag. And he said, 'Okay, now listen. What they told me at the store was, if you drink all this, you're going to find your pants down at your knees.' I said, 'I think any alcohol you drink this much, you're going to find your pants at your knees.'"
If you
So
could feel your
there's
knees,
funny
that's
stories
actually a
around
good sign.
that.
Hey, George, as I'm reading your bio and your background, one of the things that really stuck out to me was your opinion about institutional investing, because in the
Mm.
cannabis space, everybody's looking for capital, capital, capital. They're willing to give up equity. They want debt financing, whatever it takes. You have a little bit different approach, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of naturally came in play for us because we didn't come from money, and so when we bootstrapped this thing, like I said, in six plants in our garage, $24,000 worth of equipment for two, father and son that had no idea what they were growing, and we YouTubed everything. We didn't understand the financing process, especially for cannabis, and that there was money out there. And we just naturally started, we continued to just put the money back into this company at that time. And our thing was, and I told my son, I always want to be debt free. And so back in the day, the big thing is, people fronting you marijuana and whatnot. And when we got into our first store, we had that available to us, but I was very diligent about saying, look, you don't want to owe these people money. When they come in, let's pay for everything. And it just, thankfully it stuck and it compounded as we went along. And, $5 turns into 50, turns into 5,000, turns into 500,000. It's not that easy, but I'm just, explaining the fact that we lived within our means and we did business within our means. And I was very adamant to my son that, yes, I know we all want to be driving Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and that time will come down the road. But right now, that's not the case. And so we really, we really enjoyed the business as we were growing it, and it wasn't rapid in by all means. I mean, we're talking, 13 going on 14 years now, and it took us about 7 to 8 years to get to the point where we were doing 80 to 100 million. But keep in mind, we invested everything back into the business. We weren't living beyond our means, and the business was the biggest point of what we would put the money to be in front of us. And our employees the same thing. Adamantly making sure that everybody was taken care of. And so now what you see over the past years, and I always go back to MedMen, and those guys were great, back in the day, and being rated as the Apple of cannabis and the first $1 billion, retail store and whatnot. And my son was just like, wow, like, look at this. And I said, yeah, look at it, but understand it's a lot of paper involved.
Right.
And yes, there's a lot of money that's going out, but what's really being done to secure that investment is where you're going to see down the road. And of course, 4 or 5 years later, we see that tide kind of come back in, and now, a lot of issues. And that's what we're seeing now, is we're just seeing there's such a rush for people to become like these big icons in this industry, when really you have the time. I mean, we're in the infant stage still of this business, and don't rush it. Don't, if you're going to take investments, I understand, take the lowest security investments that you can, and typically that's friends, family, and whatnot, because they're going to hold you more accountable than being a public company and just taking unknown money. And I've watched companies, and I've watched companies secure 75 100 million dollars, and these guys are flying around in jets, and all of a sudden you start to see a decline, and they can't weather through that. And there's companies that just recently have pulled out of a few states, and California Colorado and I think Oregon was one of the companies. And I don't understand for a company of that size to pull out of these markets, which are huge markets. And, and then here we are as a company that's 10 months now back into this. And, the numbers that we're doing are just absolutely amazing. And they're bigger than the numbers we were doing previously. But, we're very concentrated on slow growth. And, I think the problem that you see now is there's so many people coming into this industry or in the industry that for some reason they think like the wheels are on fire behind you. So you just got to move as quick as you can and get some money and get out. And we got a long time in this. Like I'm looking through, my kids' years and their kids' years. And, we want this to be something long-term and we have that. It's just the investment side of it now. You're just seeing so many people taking this money and they don't know what to do. What are you going to do with $40-50 million?
Spend it. It's easy to spend money. It's easy to spend money. It's just not easy to make it, right? Or
exactly.
Right? And but you figured that out, and I give you a lot of credit. So I want to give you an opportunity to plug your website here. And are any plans coming to the East by any chance?
Yes, and that's in the works right now. And we're once again, I mean, we're kind of a slow developer. We do have something that's under contract right now. I can't fully disclose that, but we are heading out there. I'll be on I think my son and I will be on a flight out there in the next month or so. And I think the contract is, if I were to ask our attorney, I think it's done. Of course we're in Michigan and a couple other places that we're kind of tiptoeing through the waters of licensing agreements and we don't want to get too carried away on it, but we do have people that want to license it. So, yes. So the answer is yes, we are working that direction.
Yeah. And that is, as far as I'm concerned, when you have product like that and you license out the recipes, if you will, that's interstate commerce, as far as I can tell. That being said, we know that you can't cross state lines with the flower, but you can grow the same cultivars in each state and then create these recipes. Isn't that what? Yeah. Yeah. Which
that's the hardest thing to do, to be honest with you. If it was, how great it would be to have interstate commerce and right. Then we could ultimately be in 15 states in 2-3 years, but you have to take the juju has to go with it. And so we're very adamant that we are a part of that and in maintaining the family, if you want to call it that, like this atmosphere that we have, and that's generated in through Michigan already as it is. We want to make sure that that's maintained in this brand. And that's why we did this, was to bring a kind of a fun light to cannabis and allow people to be a part of something that it's not just for males. It's not just for females. It's, everybody can take part in this.
Absolutely. And the company website is gelatocannaco.com, right? And they can find out more about George Sadler there and check out his gelato goods and all the different lines that he is out there moving into different states. So next time you go to a dispensary, don't be afraid to ask, when's the gelato line coming to Massachusetts, to Maine, to Michigan. Well, Michigan, you're already there. So, but that's what you want. And of course, that New York market is opening up too, which is going to be fascinating to see if they can actually get rid of the 1,100 legacy growers and storefronts in Manhattan. Okay. Which is just crazy to me, but
it is. I was there not too long ago and I had my wife and kids and, we were walking down and enjoying the New York and I look to my right and there's a van sitting there and I realized they're selling weed out of that van and it's just parked right on the side of the street. And I went over, I said, are you CBD? No, we're everything. What do you need? What do you want? I was like, so you're selling everything. Yeah. And then she kind of opened up one of the sides, said, yeah, we've got everything you think of, edibles, pre-rolls and this and that. I said, are you licensed? And she said, well, what's the definition of licensed? I said, okay. And then I walked down as we went, we were there for probably 4 days, 3 or 4 days. I can't remember. And they're on every corner.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, we couldn't get away with that. I mean, although we're sitting on about 1,600, you know, illegal dispensaries in the state of California, you know, nothing compares to that. But I'm excited to see how this flows through New York, because as everybody knows, if New York and California are on the same level, a lot of things happen in between. And I think federally, it could push things a lot quicker, you know, and it's proven to be. New York and California they need to level up for these things to go through. So I'm super happy to see that go. And, you know, we're anxious to be able to help in any way that we can, to be a part of that for sure. But they got a little work to do.
Yeah, you think law enforcement doesn't want to deal with
Nope.
it's an absolute mess. I love the story. We had it last week in We Talk News that there's actually an illegal dispensary 400 feet across the street from New York City Hall where the mayor works. And
Is there really?
And it's just, yeah. Oh God, yes. You can check it out on last week's We Talk News or the week before. And that's what it's like. But George, thank you so much for coming on, joining us. Appreciate it. Please let
Absolutely.
us know if you are coming east, or certainly when you go back to your Michigan roots.
Yeah.
You could always, I'm sure Rick will be happy to hang out with you.
As much as you might not want to think so, I'm excited about getting out of California, you know, off and on.
Well, it is a different planet, okay?
Yeah, it's true.
It's a different planet, and we totally get it. We got to take a break, and of course, it's a little bit after the 4:20 hour. We usually play the Jonathan Edwards song "Shanty" at that time. I'm sure we're going to hear it. When we come back, we're going to have what we call Freeform Friday. All right, that's what's happening over the next few 90 minutes of the show.
How provocative. Wow.
Yeah, I know. I stole it from the sports radio station in town. All right, we're going to be back after this. Don't go away. Green Rush Live continues after this. The Summit Lounge in Worcester at 116 Water Street is Massachusetts' only private cannabis consumption social club. Hi, I'm Jimmy Young, Pro Cannabis Media founder. On March 1st, that's a Wednesday night, 7 to 9 p.m., we're going to be live streaming a program right from here, a talk show with all sorts of little media celebrities, sports celebrities. We've got an infused sampling of some food that we might be able to share here, as well as some other surprises. Cannabis trivia, Cannabis Jeopardy, and the best freaking milkshakes of all time. Check this out. Now at the Summit Lounge, a fireside, that's what they call it. It's a chocolate ice cream blended with milk and s'mores, Torani syrup, fluff rim. You had me at fluff. It's all coated in s'mores cereal, topped with freshly toasted marshmallows, a graham cracker, and a Hershey's milk chocolate bar. They'll be here. I'll be here. Will you be here? Take a picture of the QR code and get your tickets now. It's a whole new world of weed out there, isn't it? Everyone is learning new ways to titrate, ingest, consume, imbibe, and engage with this plant medicine we call cannabis. Hi, I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media and the host of In the Weeds, and once in a while, the really live business cannabis talk show we call Green Rush on Friday afternoons from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern. Now, let me tell you my cannabis story. You know, I've had 4 major surgeries in the past 23 years and suffer from osteoarthritis with a variety of metal parts in my body and one on deck. Now, thanks to those chronic pain issues, I've been a medical patient in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I remember my first trip to a dispensary just outside of Boston, and I told the bud tender I didn't want to smoke it anymore, so I tried edibles, then tinctures, then vaping, and now, if I'm going to smoke, I only use the Weejits filtration system. What? The Weejits.com, Weejits, that's weed, W-E-E-D, G-E-T-S.com, is where you'll find the planet's coolest product that cools the smoke from everyone's favorite flower. Now, the guy that started this was a pretty good medical device manufacturer, and he created this maze pipe that cools the smoking process from 1300 degrees Fahrenheit upon inflammation down to just 90 degrees when it reaches your mouth. That's right, 1300 down to 90. That's why this maze pipe is amazing. So here's how it works. You start with that glass bowl, you flame on, and then you inhale nice and smooth so the smoke goes through 3 different filtration and cooling systems. Now, if pre-rolls is your thing, you can use the Weegit's filter that a pre-roll fits into perfectly. That's right, or even a chillum. The more filters, the smoother the draw. Best of all is the price. You can get all this, or one or the other, for just a few bucks. It'll cool your smoke and you'll give your lungs a break. Now, add in the code of PCMTV and you get 15% off. So just go to Weegits.com and check out the best way to enjoy a cooler smoke with less coughing and hacking and more peace of mind. All that resin and tar is collected in the polyurethane filters that are easy to clean with soap, water, and a few Q-tips. Your lungs will thank you, and so will I.
Which at first I thought, oh, I don't know if I'm an activist, but I have, held a bullhorn on the State House steps. I have frequently testified before the Cannabis Control Commission in the state legislature, and I'm not, shy about criticizing where I see, mistakes being made. So yeah, I think that's what differentiates me, just an appreciation for the plant. And then also I'm a cannabis entrepreneur myself. I've started businesses, so I've lived that entrepreneurial journey. I know how hard it is. It is absolutely a marathon, not a sprint. So I think that, I'm in the game, not just on the sidelines.
As a broker, we have access to many, many cannabis carriers. So I will go in with 2 or 3 quotes for people. The quotes might be $20,000 for one, $22,000 for another, $17,500 for another. Pretty close among the 3. What I tell people is it's not the pricing, it's what's included and not included, meaning exclusions. An exclusion in layman's terms is just something that's not included. It's not on the menu, so it's just not included. But if you don't know that, if no one shows you that on page 71 of a 150-page policy, you're not going to know. No one knows. I never met one person that says they read an insurance policy. If you do, I got some property in Florida for you.
Weed Talk and In the Weeds are 2 productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
So the reality of the matter is, big banks and small banks are going to be different in a lot of ways, and they're both going to have their advantages and disadvantages. For a business like cannabis, you really have to have an integral knowledge of that business and a real granular knowledge of that business and the players involved in it. And that's why if you look at the banks that are successful to play in this space in Massachusetts, they are smaller banks that are very heavy, intensified personal touch, human communication, where you don't get a lot of that with the bigger banks.